right, so as the folks trickle in, we can get started. First, hello everyone. Welcome to our first Help Desk office hour of the series. My name is Ami Sherson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the project manager at Arts Business Collaborative. We are super excited to have everyone here today, and I have a little bit of a spiel before we get started. This office hour is being recorded and will be posted on the Arts Business Collaborative YouTube channel by next week. If you would like your question or portion to not be recorded or public, please let me know and I can remove it from the recording. This office hour is much more casual compared to our standard webinar, and we want everyone to engage and ask questions. So feel free to shout out your question or put that in the chat box. This year's Help Desk is brought to you with thanks to the M&T Charitable Foundation, Hill Capital Partners, Amalgamated Bank, and Empire State Development Corporation. If you're interested in applying for the ESD Small Business Pandemic Relief Grants, ABC provides free technical support. You can learn more information and connect with us by either private messaging myself or emailing services@artsbusinesscollaborative.org. Now, I'm super excited to pass things off to Amanda Figueroa, co-founder of Brown Art Inc. She'll be able to ask any and all questions regarding brand image and design. So to start it off, I'll pass it off to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much to Arts Business Collaborative. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Ami. Thank you, Lydia, for organizing an opportunity for everybody to have a fun, freewheeling chat about branding and design. I am one of the two co-founders of Brown Art Inc.
I like you.
I like you too, babe.
I like you also. Like I was saying, I am one of two co-founders of Brown Art Inc., which is a nomadic arts incubator that supports artists and arts organizations that focus on, are led by, and for artists of color, particularly women of color. Through Brown Art Inc., we do a variety of consulting services, everything from research, writing, grant development, web design, graphic design, overall branding and strategic direction for people who are working in or with arts communities and culture work broadly. So I'm really excited to answer questions, show you guys some examples of work that we've done in the past that might be relevant to you, and just toss some ideas around.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda, for that background. And I guess before we get started, I know we talked about this before, but what are 3 things that organizations or individuals that are starting off with developing their brand organization should consider?
Yeah, I love this question because I think it really reinforces how important it is to have a strong beginning. I always say you need to begin with the end in mind, by which I mean I tell all my clients that before they even get started on what we think of traditionally as branding, like logo, colors, fonts, website, I tell clients to really have an idea of what you want to say. And I mean that both broadly, thematically, conceptually, but also very literally. It's always way easier to develop branding around content than it is to develop content based on your branding. So the first of 3 things I would say that clients need to have when they get started is some sort of content written, even if it's as simple as a mission statement and a list of services. After that, I would say a really clear idea of how you want people to feel when they work with you. And I say that because I think it's separate and distinct from the services you offer, the tangible deliverables that you're going to provide to clients or communities. How do you want people to feel when they're working with you? For Brown Art Inc., we wanted to really emphasize in every aspect of our branding how important citation and historically embedded practices are to the work that we do. So that helped us inform a branding profile for our business that really incorporated citations, really gave people the feeling of working with people who were well-versed experts throughout history. And I think the last thing I would say I really want clients to have right when they get started is a sense of where they belong. What platforms are you going to find your audience on? We get a lot of clients for Brown Art Inc. who are like, I have to have a Twitter. I need to get on Twitter. I need you to run our Twitter account. And turns out Twitter's just not a good home for the content that they want to generate, or the clients that they want to find. You don't have to be on Twitter. It's actually easier to not be on Twitter than it is to try to be on Twitter if that's not for you. So part of these early stages of branding development are about knowing who your audience is and where to find them.
Awesome. That is definitely a great starting point in thinking about building brand. So thank you so much for touching on that. And I want to open the floor. If you have any questions about specific to your organization or a project that you're working on, please feel free to share them out, shout them out. We want to support you as much as possible. And feel free to unmute yourself as well.
Yeah, I used to teach university classes, so I'm very accustomed to the hand raise feature if you guys want to use that. But I'm really just excited to have a chat and hear some of your voices.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm Takesha, and I wanted to know, what is the starting point when you have a great idea or a great concept and you have a following on a different platform, say for instance, as an individual artist, but now I'm looking to start a nonprofit and have specific programming and projects. So how do I merge the two? Do I merge the two? How do I present that to the public? It's a new idea, all of that. What are the foundational concepts?
Sure. That's a question we get a lot. And actually, it's a question that Brown Art Inc. is sort of perfect to help you answer, because our original starting point was actually as a blog. We wrote review pieces and journalist pieces about contemporary art with a focus on trying to appeal to audiences, visitors of color in art and history museums. And then along the way, we pivoted, and now we're a consulting organization that supports other artists and organizations. So at a certain point in that journey, we also had to have that moment of like, well, we've got this great following, and we know they care about us and they feel aligned with us in terms of priorities and vision for the art world. How do we bring them with us? It's both harder than you think and easier than you think, which is such a non-answer. In terms of a beginning point, I say it begins with conversation. One of the first things that we had to do was really start talking more to the people who were following us on social media, the people who were regular readers of our website, and start to find out from them, what are the things about what we're doing now that are most important to you? What are the things about what we're doing now that captured your attention and made you continue to follow and participate in our work? And once we had that information, which came from a mix of analytics data from our social media and our website, and also just talking with people at our live events, we were able to say, okay, the things that people really love about us are actually not specific to the articles we write or the fact that we're doing journalism. It's specific to the fact that they're seeking out arts-focused content from two women of color. And so with that in mind, we knew what the components were that we had to maintain about our message as we transitioned from journalism and programs to consulting services. So yeah, I say it begins with conversation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to take follow-up questions about that, or take a new question if anyone has any.
So kind of along those lines, and I'm also very curious, Amanda, you also worked on the Arts Business Collaborative branding, and also link our website here so people know a little bit more of what we are talking about. But can you speak a little bit to what the process was like in building the brand image, and kind of also taking the unique qualities about the company and being able to highlight it through the different colors utilized, or the social media or the website?
Sure. So Arts Business Collaborative is a perfect example of those first three things that I was saying every branding journey begins with. It truly was a joy to get to work with you guys on this website. I always say you guys were like my ideal clients, because you were so enthusiastic and communicative, but also because you guys had such a clear idea of who you were and who you wanted to serve. So thankfully I was already familiar with ABC when I came on to do this freelance work for you guys, but I knew already that you guys were interested in providing accessible services to your community of artists and arts organizations. You were interested in prioritizing artists, arts organizations that focus on people of color, which joyfully is a goal we have in common. And I knew that you were interested also in making sure there was space in your company, in your branding for accessibility needs that you hadn't yet thought of, which is huge. That I think is one of the most important things. So with that in mind, we were able to work together to design a site that was certainly communicative. The work done by ABC is technical and important and very serious and needs a lot of room and space to be able to be communicated clearly, but also needs to look friendly and welcoming to people who are intimidated by financial and other business services. I know I was when I first reached out to ABC. I am still terrified of grant applications, frankly. So with those two things in mind, it was easy to say, okay, you need a website, you need a brand identity that can communicate a lot of really important technical information in a way that makes it seem approachable. And that became a guiding principle that helped us develop the whole website with sans serif fonts and bright primary adjacent colors to make it look welcoming, to make it not look like any number of conservative financial firms that make people like me feel underdressed just standing in the lobby.
Absolutely. And I think that the way that you design the website and also like the branding definitely speaks to that. It's welcoming. You have all these warm tones.
It makes
and
me happy.
yeah, and it's not Times New Roman. We can put that away. It's like a very
Yeah.
warm and welcoming font as well. So really great job on this branding as well. And thank you so much for touching a little bit on that process. Also don't want to go on and be like full professor, full teacher mode. But again, if there's any questions, this is space and time for you. We have the wonderful expertise of Amanda. So if there's any like specific questions, this is also space as well.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Since no one else is asking, I'll just ask on my
Get into it.
Well, please go.
So I heard you mention two very important questions. This is my baby in the background. Please excuse her. Two very important questions in the beginning. You said, who are you? Who do you want to serve? Is there an entire list or battery of questions that we can start thinking about when we look at these foundational principles? Because I don't know about anyone else, but I'm starting from the beginning and I want to create an organization and an approach that starts out where it needs to be instead of fledgling. You know how we are in the beginning, fledgling and looking a hot mess and all that. I want it to be amazing as soon as it debuts.
Yeah, I completely understand that as someone who had a very fledgling initial venture that slowly sort of collected itself, and now we're a little more streamlined. I really understand the desire to be put together when you enter the world. That being said, I have to say, as perfect as you want it to be in the beginning, it's going to change regardless. So I say that just so that we can all be a little more forgiving with ourselves, me amongst us. It's going to change no matter what. Anything that you're thinking at the outset, by year 2, 3, you're going to be like, wow, that was adorable. That was cute of me to think it was going to be like that. So a little self-forgiveness, a little willingness to be flexible and sort of learn as you go is important. That being said, there's still absolutely no reason why you need to come out of the gate looking like a hot mess. I do have a checklist that I send to consulting clients at Brown Art Inc., especially when we're working with people who don't have a lot of these important assets at the start, to tell them what to start to put together. And that's going to be things like I mentioned, content, mission statement, unimpeachable. Like non-negotiable, you must have that at the beginning. From there, you can start to put together some of the other stuff like, okay, I know I have a mission statement that tells me who I'm looking for and what I'm going to provide them with. So then I know, okay, then I need a website, an Instagram account, and a LinkedIn page because the people I'm looking for are on those platforms. Great, then you can go make your logins, create your accounts. From there, you can start to ask I think the most fun part of this is, what colors are gonna represent my work in the way I wanna be represented? Half of that is, what colors do I just really like and feel like I'm gonna wanna keep looking at for the next 10 years? And half of that is a little bit of like, well, I know I'm trying to reach people who are, in the case of ABC, probably pretty frequently intimidated by this type of work. So I need colors that look friendly. Or with Brown Art Ink, especially in the beginning, it was, well, we know we're two young women of color who are coming in basically to tell organizations how wrong we think they are about stuff. We need a color palette that communicates a certain amount of expertise. We need a color palette that communicates a certain amount of contemporaneously, currently, currentness, so that people know that the point of working with us is that you're getting a fresh take from people who know what they're talking about. After you pick your colors, that streamlines pretty efficiently into, okay, typography. What are the fonts that do that same work? My goal for clients I work with is that every aspect of their branding looks nice, certainly, but more importantly, visually and aesthetically reinforces whatever the message of their content is. All of that is information that should be working for you and not just stuff that looks nice.
Can I say something?
Please.
Okay. I was in here typing and I'm like, I'll just say it. I just love that the part of why ABC is so focused on and how we do support for communities of color, particularly Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people, and why we love working with Brown Art Inc. is actually that you're considering like not just like what you want to communicate, but how people are going to see you and how in a white supremacist context you are seen. And so like having that as sort of part of the mix in how you create your presentation really can make or break a lot of things when you're faced with the gatekeepers, when you're faced with predominantly white institutions that you're competing with. And, you know, like sometimes literally what you like, how you present like your like logo or your like presentation, just like not even the content, just like what it looks like can be the difference between you getting a contract or getting an opportunity. And it's a reality of being a business owner, of like whether it's a for-profit, nonprofit, you're an individual artist, doesn't matter. It is a reality that we have to be thinking about that. And you know, ABC and Brown Art Inc. is here to help you think about that. So I'm just like, this is just like making my little heart warm.
It's totally mutual. Yeah, no, you're completely correct. It does make a difference. Every aspect of your branding tells people something about the work you do, whether you intend it to or not. So you should capitalize on that. And I don't mean, and I know Kat also doesn't mean that to sound like your average bland respectability politics nonsense. Right? That's not what we're saying. The point of being focused on your branding is not to be like, well, you need to use the colors and use the fonts and use the language that makes white people feel okay about you. No, absolutely not. The point is to say all of that is communicating something. You should be in control of what it's communicating. And you should be able to make the really informed, decisive, radical choice to say, I know what the traditional look of work that I do is. I'm choosing intentionally to give you something different. That's how you demonstrate expertise. That's how you demonstrate that your work is 2 steps ahead of any traditional white firm or organization or business that your clients could work with.
Absolutely. All of this information is so important. And I really appreciate all the details that you've talked about, because thinking about branding can be so intimidating, especially for an organization that is just starting out. And I know that we have some folks that are coming in as well. So welcome. This is super casual. So ask questions as you like. You can be as macro as micro as you would like to. But I guess I have a little bit of a question to dive deeper into the topics that you're talking about of, there are a lot of organizations who have the idea that want to start, but maybe don't have the capacity or the budget to hire someone to work on branding. What can people do to start? Like, are there any products, or are there any apps that people can utilize? Like, what are ways that people can get crafty and DIY in building their brand?
Sure. So I'll start that by saying there's a lot of resources available out there. One of which I should answer to Keisha's last question by saying I'm happy to send you guys a list of just a checklist of branding assets that you should put together. I hope you'll all be in touch via email or through Brand Inc.'s regular channels, so I can get you the information that you're looking for. That being said, branding is still a lot of work. Big firms spend hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars on branding just to get it right by the experts, right? There's a huge market out there for it. Not everybody has, like Ami just said, the money to throw around like that. You can DIY it. You can. Branding is about taste, and branding is about communicating aesthetically to your community. So you can throw $1 million at it, but if you're paying all that money to a firm that doesn't know how to reach the people you're interested in, it's not worth it. If you know the community that you want to reach, you are a branding expert for that community. If you feel close to that community, if you feel like you're a member of that community, you're going to be better at it than just throwing your money around for nonsense. That being said, of course, there's a medium area where it's like, yeah, you can work with a small firm that can mix both the like giant aspects of design and aesthetics with community conversations and reaching your audiences. You have options. All that to say, if you want to really DIY your own branding, a couple tools that I would put on your radar are Canva, which has a free tier and a very affordable paid option, both of which I believe make it possible for you to manage your branding assets like your color scheme, your font, stuff like that will all just live in Canva and be there for you when you need it. Even though Brand Inc. does shell out a truly insane amount of money for Adobe Suite software, a lot of the time, if one of our clients needs a quick turnover graphic, or if we need something for our own social channels, I make it in Canva. Yeah. So I'm going to say Canva. I'm also going to say just any good sort of like project management tool behind you is going to be really important. I mean, things like Brand Inc. we use Notion. I know ABC, you guys use Asana, which I've used and really like. Those are just tools that can take the shape of to-do lists or repositories, good places to manage all of your stuff. For colors, guys, I gotta tell you about my favorite website in the world. It's called The Coolers. It's like colors with 2 O's in the beginning, 3 O's in total. Oops, I just sent that to Kat, not everyone. It's my favorite website. It's just endless color palettes. I find it so soothing in like on a bad day just to go open and just look at some nice colors that go together. We use that tool a lot to sort of mix and match colors. The great thing about it is that every color palette that you see, you can open up right on the website and then tweak it to be however you want. So you might see something and you're like, this is great. I wish that red was darker, or ooh, I wish it was with green instead of purple. And you can get in there and use it. It's very user friendly. You don't have to be a graphic designer or like a big technical person to learn how to manipulate the colors and get something that you really like. Other than that, I think things like Google Fonts give you a huge repository of different fonts that you can use on your website or even in your social graphics. What else do I use and like? Honestly, Instagram is where I find most of my design inspo. I love to look and see what new ways people are putting together information, whether that's a flyer, whether that's a graphic post, a quote, things like that. I keep a little folder on my Instagram account that I save like inspo design to.
Awesome. These are such good resources to have, especially to start right when you posted the coolers. I was like going through the generator. It's so awesome. This is great.
Cool.
Thank you for sharing these tools. It'll definitely be really great when people begin to think about their brand and having that inspiration as well. And then also, do you think that it would be helpful to build something before bringing it to, like, for example, someone that could work on branding, and like once folks have the capacity to have a consultant, or like, what's that transition like?
Sure.
And I also see the question from Jovan and Janelle. Hi, but I will see. I'll pass it over to them after this question.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to follow the chat and talk at the same time. So I apologize if I miss anything, and I hope Ami will bring it to my attention. Your question was, how much should people develop before they come to a consultant for help taking it to the next stage, I'll say. Branded Inc. works with clients at all stages. We've worked with clients who are like, I'm about to start this business. I have nothing. Please put it all together for me. And we work with clients who are like, this is what I want. This is what we've been using for the last 40 years. Do not change it. Just work within these bounds. I have to say, I don't really have a preference on that. For me, the goal is always to give my client exactly what they want. So whether that means that they have a clear idea and I just can hit the ground running and work within that, or we collaborate together to find something that they know they like, that's not important to me. What is important to me is that I'm working with clients who already know who they are and who they want to serve. Because then it's easy to work with you to find out what you're looking for, to give you advice that says, these colors communicate the message you want versus these that don't. Yeah, bad clients are clients that don't know what they want. Bad clients are ones that don't trust their consultants to tell them what works. I will say, in terms of just operationally, if you do have assets that you want your designer to work with or your consultant to work with, being able to deliver them all at once is the best thing. So instead of saying like, oh, you just need to get the colors from the website, and here's just a Dropbox of images of flyers we've made before you put together, it's so much nicer if you can say, here is one folder in which you will find a link to our color palette and our style guide information and images and logos. If you're working with images, especially for logos, if you can get a transparent version, oh my God, I would pay a client a non-zero sum of money just to be certain that they would have a transparent logo vector file before we start working together. I'm like, yeah, I would put that together as a grant program. Here is $100. Please make a transparent logo. Kat, let's collaborate. So yeah, so really just being able to hand over everything all at once. Even if you don't think you have everything that your consultant might need, even if you're like, well, here are fonts and colors, but I don't have a logo yet, or here's my logo, I need some things pulled out of it, or I haven't chosen a font or a look for the website yet. That's fine. Just one streamlined place, I think, is way more important than having too much or not having enough.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that information. Also, Vector File Fan Club, I definitely feel you on that. But also, it's really important to be able to see how clients can work collaboratively with their consultants or their designers. And so thank you so much for touching on like what would be most helpful for a designer like you. I also want to pass things off to Janelle. I know that she was raising her hand.
Hey, thanks, Ami. And first off, your hair. Okay.
Thank you.
So I came in kind of late. I was like looking for the time and then got distracted and realized now I'm 15 minutes late. But so thank you for letting me in. But so as far as what I would need, obviously my name is listed as Javon, so we definitely need assistance with branding. But my question is about someone starting out, and I've done graphic design, so I understand all the pain that you were expressing. But what would be helpful for me and my business partner, if we're going to be on some DIY for a little bit as we build up our assets, if we can have a list of things that or an organization would need, right? Because sometimes you don't know until you go to make that Facebook post. Crap, we don't have our logo, or we don't have an icon, or we got an icon, but we need it to be in black and white. So I think if from this today, as far as resources, those websites that you listed, and then also if you can list, the starter kit, starting off, you need to have this, and that, and maybe like a little explanation. But even if you don't have an explanation what they are, just listing those names out of items so that if we are working with a consultant or we're doing it ourselves, we know, okay, first I need to create, my logo. And my logo, I need to maybe think about a logo without a tagline, with a tagline, size, square, transparent, all those different things. So that could be helpful. And then my last comment was I missed a little bit of what you said when I first came in. And you were saying something to the effect of like, your brand is just as good as like a white person's brand or white group. Is that
It's
what you
better.
said?
No, I would never say as good. Wildly better. Yes. First of all, yes, I will absolutely be sending the checklist of assets that I send to my paying clients, to people who join this help desk webinar event. Please just get in touch. I'll make sure you guys all have my contact information before we close out for the day. Second of all, what I was saying, Janelle, when you popped in, and I'm delighted for the chance to get to repeat it, is that Kat and I were talking together about how it's important to me as a consultant, as a designer, that my clients understand that the visual information, the branding, the look of your content is communicating to your audience just as much as the words on the page. And so you really need to be able to be aware of that and in control of that, because then suddenly once you know that even the colors you choose are talking to people about what your business is about, even the fonts that you use is telling people something about the work that you do, you can be in control of every aspect of that information. And it enables you to be able to make thoughtful, strategic choices, even ones that go outside of what is traditionally accepted. I was talking about this in the context of the ABC site, where they provide a lot of highly technical, highly skilled financial and business services, things which to me, frankly, are really intimidating. I would never go to a website that looked like those fancy white collar, run by white people institutions and want to trust them with my money and my business. That's terrifying. So even though ABC's website is technically and skills-wise absolutely on par with all these very fancy traditional white firms, again, I would say probably exceeds that by a landslide, especially when it comes to clients like Brown & Ink. Even though it doesn't look the same as a traditional corporate website, the colors make it better for me because it makes me feel comfortable, because they knew their audience isn't people who feel okay in these highly traditional, very conservative, very white institutional spaces. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I was like, hold on. When I came into the chat, because I'm like, we don't create and do things, only in response to white supremacy. We are who we are all day long. So I just wanted to make sure that was in the right place.
You must have come in right after I said this is not about some respectability politics bullshit. This is not about you too can look just like white folks. This is about you can be in control of every aspect of your image and then make a clear, informed, expert choice in the way that you want to display your business, even when it's outside of those paradigms.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess I wouldn't judge myself with those paradigms, but that's fine. But yeah, I was just curious of what you were mentioning. But thank you very much. I appreciate the information. So I look forward to getting the list.
Awesome. And Amanda, I'm curious, would you be open to answering more like specific questions? I know that there's folks here who created their own startups and organizations. So if folks want to go around and speak a little bit about their organization or idea, and maybe we could troubleshoot, we still have like 25 minutes, so we can definitely dive deep. Or if you want me to pause the recording, if you'd like it to be off record, happy to do that as well.
Yeah, I would love to answer some more specific questions. I'm finishing up a PhD right now, so I definitely can get a little woo-woo. But I would love to talk pros and cons of serif type fonts with you guys. Like, let's get into the little things.
I have a question.
Sure.
You were saying that there are certain colors and certain fonts that say something specific. What are they saying exactly? What does it say about choosing a particular color or a particular font that speaks to the business itself?
Sure. So this is some pretty basic color theory stuff, which I find really interesting. If you do too, there's plenty of information out there to read and look at. I'm happy to also make some book recommendations, stuff like that. Broadly, brighter colors with a higher saturation level, similar to ABC's colors, are going to give you more of the feeling of friendliness, openness. It can also exude something like innocence or maybe innocence isn't the word I'm really trying to say. I definitely like open at friendliness, but also can be read sometimes as superficial or more shallow than you mean to be. I say that as a perfect example with ABC because that sort of bright, shiny color palette really helps leverage the highly technical expertise that Kat and her staff bring. So suddenly, because that color scheme is so bright and so welcoming, that makes me feel like all that skills and all that technical expertise is accessible to me. Whereas if you were using all these bright and shiny colors to talk about something that wasn't weighted down by that heavy skill set, you might come across as being more childlike or more innocent. Similarly, darker color fonts tend to read more conservative, more traditional, more interested in rules, regulations, procedures, more serious. So you might, for like a playful design irony, you might leverage that against content that, for example, I worked with a woman who's a professional dom, sex worker, and social worker. And because so much of that work might seem really serious, we did give her those really dark, rich colors, but against a more light cream background. So the whole thing didn't feel so heavy and traditional. I'm happy to share a link to that website if you guys are interested. Similarly, you can go color by color. Reds tend to read more passionate, intense, fiery. Blues and greens are more cool, more reserved personalities. I will pause and say all of this is, of course, a very white and very Western theory of aesthetics. So you should temper this, of course, with any specific cultural understandings that speak to the people that you want to work with. And of course, different color combinations can do different things, you know? So you could have a very dark, conservative seeming color palette and then bring in sort of a fun, playful yellow, and it's like a little hidden surprise. It's like a little joke. In terms of typographies, again, by and large, serif fonts, which are fonts that have the little thing at the ends, like Times New Roman, again, read as more traditional and more conservative than sans serif fonts without the little guy at the end, the serif, like Arial, Helvetica, Open Sans, which come across as more youthful and more friendly. Again, you can sort of play with that irony. Most websites that I design use at least two fonts. So we might use the serif font as the headline. It's really attention getting. And then the sans serif for ease of reading when you're in the actual like detailed content. And then of course in there you have other font like display fonts that are more artistic, more aesthetic, that you would certainly use for a logo or a headline, but they're so designy that they're kind of hard to read for like a paragraph or a sentence worth of content.
Awesome. This is such great information, and highlighting a comment that Kat put in the chat. Please never use Comic Sans.
Ooh, Kat, I bet I could change your life. I could make it work. Takesha is into Gil Sans. I would one day when I finish this dissertation and get all my free time back, I would love to do like horoscopes for people based on their like font of choice. I think that would be really fun.
Awesome. Lydia has her hand raised, so I'll pass it on over to her.
sorry, I had the mute button going on. I was gonna say one comment that Comic Sans is actually very helpful for dyslexic readers. So one point about Comic Sans to throw out there. I just learned that actually this week. So I was like, very interesting. But my question for Amanda would be, in this list that you have, and I might have missed it, so forgive me if I'm asking the question again. But in the list that you have, do you have a description of what terms mean what things? Because I think that that's my biggest like stumbling block in communicating things that I'm looking for, or things that I need, or things that I want, because I'm like, okay, it's like a little picture thingy, and I don't know what it's called, but it's like it's clip art or a thumbnail or a, like, I know like the terminology for what things are called is like, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure that out tomorrow, and then I'll make my ask, and then I never figure it out. And so, so do you have like a list like that people could use as a resource for like,
I don't have one, but I would love to make one now that you bring it up. Yeah, I find actually as a designer, I do a lot of that work where it's really just like Ami said in the chat, it's vocabulary building. And so a lot of the times when I get on Zoom to screen share and show a client a prototype I'm working on for them, I do have to spend a lot of time being like, oh, you're talking about, this is a hover effect, or oh, this is the kerning, or oh, this is the padding and how the padding is different from the margin. So I should put that together. Yeah, I'll get my team on that.
And then a third question that I have is, where for you, and I know that BAI does a number of things, but for someone who's kind of looking for like, okay, I need to set up my website, kind of how would you talk with them about where the line between like marketing is and PR is, and like website design? And I know they're all kind of like tied and intermixed, but when someone's reaching out to you, or is there kind of like a place where you would say like, this is like, you should work on this with a marketing department, and then we'll set up your website, or like, and especially for someone who only does like web design, if that was like someone who that person would be reaching out to.
Yeah. Okay. I really appreciate that question. You're completely correct that all these things are deeply related. If you were to walk into Google and look at their structure, they have separate teams doing all those things, but all those teams probably pretty frequently collaborate. It is also, however, sort of if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail sort of situation. So sometimes people don't have a graphic designer, so they sort of give that to their PR person, or they don't have a PR person, so suddenly their web developer is told, okay, make the website, but also write all the content to fill it. By and large, to give you just a very rough definition, and again, you're probably going to find a lot of people like myself who can do a little bit of everything. I am very lucky to work with a team that can fill in any gaps in my personal knowledge. I would say branding is about developing universal brand assets, colors, fonts, logos, things that will live in a multiple different places. Web development is just the structure of your website, which pieces go where, and then your universal branding assets will fill in colors, typographies, images, logos. PR or a communications department should be in charge of everything that's written content, whether it's living on your website or on your social media captions or on printed flyers that you hand out at your events. And then you can have smaller services in there like an individual graphic designer who might come in and take assets from the branding portfolio and make things that are specific to the website, or make things that are specific to Instagram, Facebook, so other social media, print design, stuff like that. You might also have someone who comes in just as a copywriter, again, as a sub-service to write content specific to whatever medium you need to be filled in with. But again, you will likely, especially if you plan on working with consultants, you'll probably be able to find a firm like Brown Art Inc. where we handle every aspect of that for our clients. It really is a menu of services that we offer. And we let our clients say, okay, I do need web development and I do need content writing, but I feel good about our social media channels. I know my audience on there. I've got that handled. Or they might come in and say, I need somebody who can just look at everything I've written in the last 5 years and tell me what to keep and what to get rid of. And then there's no design work involved in that.
Thank you. That was helpful.
I'm so glad.
Hey, so I'm back with the question.
Great.
So especially if we're talking about more specific things, my business partner and I, we're at the very beginning stages of putting our business together. And we had this conversation very briefly because we get along because we work well together because we are polar opposites, right? So because of that, and I don't know how many other people have experienced this as far as starting a business, I guess, what tips do you have as far as building cohesion in the organization? Because I like I said, I have done graphic design, right? But that the conflict that comes from people being subjective about what they like, what they don't like, what they want to see, what they want to convey in the brand visually, can be a hot mess. So just how, like, any tips you have in navigating that or like starting that process? Because even before we get to a person, like my approach is like coming to them, kind of what you said, like coming to them, we want to do this, and that. And my business partner's approach as well, let's see what they come up with, which is very difficult for a designer who has, 10 clients or whatever. So, and it's expensive as well. So I think finding a way for, because I may have a strong idea, but I don't want to miss someone's creativity because I think I know how I want it. You see what I'm saying? So we both have good points, but how to build the cohesion between the two of us is something I would love your opinion on. Thank you.
Sure. I'm not an organizational psychologist expert, but I do have a co-founder, and we've been working together for 6 years. And so we definitely have also had our come to Jesus, someone's going to have to compromise, and it's not going to be me, conversations. So I definitely understand, especially when it comes to branding, which does seem so subjective. Having to really coordinate with someone, even someone who you love working with. Luckily, between Raven and I, she has the vision and I have the skills. So I show her a prototype and she says, make it more ethereal. And I say, show me where on the page. Show me exactly, point on the page where it can be more ethereal. So I'm making a little joke, but that is actually a good way to do it, is if it's the two of you and you're DIYing this, becoming really specific together about what is it that you like about this, what is it that you don't like about this. Show me where on the page you want to see something different. I would also say being able to think about your preferences not as a all or nothing, I like it, I don't like it, but starting to think about it more as a spectrum of like, what are my priorities? What are the things that I'm going to go to the mat and I'm going to say, it must be red. I will not accept any other color besides red. This specific red, that's a 10 out of 10 importance for me. Versus sometimes you're like, really, any kind of monotype font is fine with me. That's like a 3. I care a 3. And then being able to have a conversation of like, especially when conflict emerges, you might be able to say, well, for me, this is a number, like a 10 out of 10 issue. And then for Raven, my co-founder, she's like, oh, I didn't realize you cared that much. I'm at like a 7. We'll do your thing. So that's all interpersonal dynamics. I get it. Another option you have, if you were open to working with a consultant, would be to take the designs that it sounds like you have in mind, Janelle, with your collaborator, show them to a consultant, a designer, and say, what feedback would you give on these designs? Not what, like, make us something brand new from scratch, but also not work only with this and don't involve any other ideas. You can show it to them and say, what would you change about this? Or often when I get the sense or when I'm told from my clients that that's sort of what they're looking for, I do 3 passes. And so I'll take the assets that they provided me with. I'll do one prototype that's strict to those assets, one prototype that's sort of this is a jumping off point, I'm going to get weird with it, and then one that's sort of a middle of the road. And then I get to present them and say, we can go really traditional. If I was going to just go wild, here's like the most fun, crazy, wild idea I would do. And here's sort of a compromise in the middle. We've kept some, we've changed some, sort of half and half. The only thing about that is that that's not always a standard procedure for consultants. You might have to specifically ask for that. And so that's why I would begin the conversation by saying, we have these assets, what would your feedback be? How would you become creative with these? Or what would you change? Is that standard for brown art ink? Yeah, it depends on the client. If I get the sense that it's something the client is looking for, yeah, I'll offer it. But we do work with clients who come in and are like, don't change anything. We're going with this. It's not a conversation. But I like to get weird with people's ideas.
Well, thank you very much. That helps. So we're so early though, we barely have assets. We have like a PowerPoint. So but yeah, that's definitely something we haven't prioritized it, but it's definitely something we'll look forward to. So I thank you for those tips. That's going to help us.
And I think Ami, you said there was time for one more.
Yes, if folks have any questions, please ask away, but I'll also share some ways to continue to connect with Amanda later as well.
Please.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lydia.
Sorry, I couldn't find the little hand again. I was like, it might take longer to find the little hand than to raise my own hand. But another question that I had is where, are there a couple of examples or a couple of places where there would be like a boundary where you would say like, this is not work that we do, or where, like you're kind of doing more than you really should, or you need to kind of take it back to the client and say like, this is the work that you need to be doing. And then we can have another conversation about it, but kind of like what would be 1 or 2 boundaries that you might have with working with someone, or with asking for a serious pause for more work to be done?
Sure. I have fired clients before, and God help me, I will do it again. For me, those boundaries, the most immediate one, it comes from turnaround time. For a client, it's often, that's their only project. For me, I have anywhere between 4 to 6 projects going on at every time. I can't rush to meet your schedule. I work 9 to 5 hours. It would have to be a very special client working for a very special consulting price on a very special project for me to log weekends to meet a timeline that we haven't already agreed on. So that right off the bat is it. I've had a design client who came to me and said, we need you to do this portfolio. It needs to be done by next week. And once I got to look at the actual content they were looking for, I could do it. I'm not going to. I'm not gonna break my neck trying to make that happen for you. So really being understanding with the client of this is the timeline on which I can do it. Here's where I'm at. I've had to let clients go because they were expecting a timeline that I couldn't deliver on, and I'm not going to turn around poor quality work just to meet a deadline. Also, Brand Art Inc. does do content and copywriting, but only if we're asked explicitly, only if that's part of the contract. So if we're contracted just to do graphic design and web development, that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm just going to input the content that you guys provide to me. I'm not going to double check it for typos, errors, being off message or off brand in any way. I do typically try to remind clients in the beginning, especially when you're putting together a website or revamping a website, that's a perfect time to comb through everything that's on there and make sure that it's accurate. But unless you hire me specifically to do that, I'm not going to do it for you. I'll show you where it goes. I'll input it the first time and I'll make sure you know how to edit it. But what the words say are not my not what I'm being hired to do. Other boundaries. I don't have a hard and fast rule on the number of revisions I'll do for a client, just because it's emotionally and ethically important to me that I'm delivering to my client something that they like and are happy with. So sometimes we work with clients and I get it in one, and that's an amazing feeling. And sometimes I have clients and we go 7 rounds of little tweaks to make sure it's perfect for them. If it's a good client, if I feel like I'm being valued as a member of their team, if I feel like they do have a clear idea of their vision, I'll do 7. It costs me nothing. If it's a client who I'm doing 7 because they can't make up their mind or they don't have a clear vision of what they're doing, I will absolutely hit pause on the project and say, I would love to continue this. Why don't you take a week and really get aligned internally about what you're looking for? Or I would love to do this project with you. I think we need to return to it in 6 months when you're a little further down in your thinking. Or when you have time for it. Sometimes people hire a consultant because they know they need it, but they just can't make time in their schedule to give the revamp or give the branding the attention it needs. And that's often a time where I have to say, I'm so excited to finish this project with you. Today is not the day. So those are probably the biggest issues where I would have to pause or end a contract. I will say by and large, though, we're super blessed. I very rarely have to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for touching on that, especially from a consultant's perspective as well, of like how to best work with a consultant, utilizing, like you've touched a lot on the specifics of what branding is like, but as there are a lot of folks in this room who are thinking about potentially collaborating with a branding consultant, these are really incredible things to keep in mind. So thank you so much for touching on that. We are 3 minutes until we have to close out, but Amanda, thank you so much for this time and space and sharing all of your expertise on all things branding and design. And so how can we best connect with you after this?
Oh my gosh, truly like such a pleasure to be here. I've had a lot of fun talking to you guys. I don't get to just chat design enough in my day-to-day life, I think. So thank you, Ami. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Lydia. This has been wonderful. I would love to stay in touch with everybody on this call. I would love to, I'll put my email in the chat. This is my direct line. So please feel free to send an email and add any follow-up questions, or I keep messaging Kat and not everyone. Kat already has my email address. It's amanda@brownartinc.com. So please feel free to reach out to me for additional questions, things like that. I will make sure Ami, Kat, and Lydia get some of the resources that I've been talking about so they can circulate those broadly. I'm happy to just have a chat about any of your ideas or any of your needs moving forward. Brown Art Inc. is currently taking new clients. So if you feel like you're in a place to want some really specific help, or even if you just want to have an hour-long brainstorming call that's all about you and your work, we're happy to take that on. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is Brown Art Inc. without the O, and Twitter is Two Brown Girls, also without the O. And there's also a contact form on our website, which is also brownartinc.com. So please, please, please be in touch. We'd love to keep talking.
Yes, and if you'd like to continue the conversation with Amanda and go deep, you actually have the opportunity for a pro bono one-on-one consultation through the help desk as well. I'm going to put the form in the chat box. And if you'd like, yes, please chat with Amanda more, go in depth, talk about all these things that are specific to you. We loved having this conversation as a group, but also if you need some more specific things, you can utilize this pro bono consultation. And so if you'd like to sign up for the help desk newsletter, learn about more sessions to come and additional resources, we have so many, please visit us online at artsbusinesscollaborative.org. We'll have another office hour next week, which is on Thursday, September 30th at 3 p.m. EST. And this will be with Josh Bushemin, our expert on finance, and boy, does he know so much. So please come prepared with all of your finance questions. He is ready to help and support you. You can sign up using the Zoom link on the help desk homepage. Thank you so much again. And we have some amazing folks in the room. So if you want to share your information, connect with each other, continue to support, we hope that we see you all in other office hours. But again, thank you so much. And we hope you have a great rest of your day and look forward to supporting and connecting with you all soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.